He also currently works with the area interfaith leaders to address community issues in our area. Matt has also conducted many informative events such as burglary awareness and domestic violence awareness and prevention. His initiatives also include school, corporate security, and active shooter awareness and response throughout the Mercer County area. These include the New Jersey School Boards Association, West Windsor Township Government Security Seminars, the Goddard School, Wilford School, the Princeton Meadows School, Bethlehem School, Synagogue, and Mercer County Community College. As a result of such an innovative result in the West Windsor Plainsboro School District, adding $100,000 to its budget for security. $1 million. They didn't type it correctly. $1 million in security. Thank you. Welcome, Angelo. That's okay. Morgan Thompson is a person in long-term recovery, having been freed of all alcohol and drugs use since the age of 18, over 7 years. Congratulations. Morgan attended Rutgers University and obtained a bachelor's degree in psychology. She is currently pursuing her master's of social work at Rutgers. Throughout her time at Rutgers, Morgan has been an active member of the Rutgers recovery community and participated in their sober housing program. So there's a program at colleges that if you're in recovery, you can live in a sober house. Morgan is a co-founder of the New Jersey chapter of Young People in Recovery, a national nonprofit organization that provides recovery support and advocates on behalf of individuals in or seeking long-term recovery. Morgan currently works at the Raymond J. Lesnick Experience, Strength, and Hope Recovery High School, New Jersey's first public recovery high school, as a recovery mentor and the school's outreach coordinator. And joining us tonight is congratulations to Mercer County prosecutor, was acting and is now officially the prosecutor, Angelo Onofre, was appointed effective March 1st, acting March 1st, and as of tomorrow will be the official Mercer County prosecutor. As First Lieutenant Assistant Prosecutor under former Mercer County Prosecutor Joseph Bocchini, Mr. Onofre was instrumental in the formation of the Mercer County Homicide Task Force and the Mercer County Shooting Response Team. He also played a vital role in the implementation of the Narcan program in Mercer County and the expansion of the Mercer County Narcotics Task Force. In late 2014, Mr. Onofre spearheaded the placement of heroin antidote naloxone in all Mercer County police cars. It's an amazing feat. Thank you. Onofre said he is looking to maintain and expand that to some EMS squads as well. Additionally, Mr. Onofre coordinated law enforcement efforts for the National Special Olympics USA Games held in Mercer County in 2014. With that, I'm going to ask Megan to start and give you a little bit about what's going on. Oh, one last thing, I apologize. Our committee will be handing out index cards with little pencils. If you have a question, please write your question on the index card and we will collect them towards the end, and then this way they're anonymous and we'll answer them anonymously. So if you have a question and you don't want to raise your hand for that, we have those index cards going around. Megan?
Hi everyone, I am Megan Meckel. I am a addict in recovery. Start off by saying my clean date is June 3rd of 2015. You know, a lot of people had asked me throughout my days of school, you know, teachers would ask you what you wanted to be when you grew up. And I always had the answer of I wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be a lawyer. I never said I wanted to be a drug addict. And from my experience, I grew up in a good neighborhood. I had a beautiful house. I had a great family. And I had, my parents loved me. I had a younger brother. I have a younger sister. And I got everything that I wanted, and I had everything that I needed. And my parents had always questioned themselves, what did they do wrong? And it was nothing that they did wrong. I didn't have an answer for them. They asked me why I couldn't stop, and I just couldn't stop. I had no answer. I went through high school, I graduated high school, and during the school years, I never really felt like I fit in. I didn't feel like I was as pretty as everybody else, as skinny as everybody else. I didn't feel like I had the clothes that everybody else had, the nice shoes. And I was a little quiet girl over in the corner, who had a look of anger on her face because that was my defense mechanism, so nobody would come up and talk to me. And after high school, I ended up getting involved in the wrong crowd of people, and I was introduced to alcohol. And drinking on a Saturday to a Sunday, the progression of the disease of addiction brought me to drinking to every day, and it brought me to mixing drugs with the alcohol. And these drugs were so easy to get. I was getting Xanax, I was getting prescription pain pills, and all I had to do was walk down the street, or I could look in my parents' medicine cabinet and I would just take their drugs, and I couldn't stop doing it. So as I went on in my addiction, you would go through the withdrawal, and you would go through the pain and suffering. People would see me, and they wouldn't be able to tell that I was an addict. I would go into family functions, and they would never be able to pick me out of all my cousins that I was the addict in the family, that I was the one using drugs. But what they didn't know was that I had a little girl inside of me that was dying. I was dying, and I was suffering, and I was in pain. And pain pills just weren't cutting it for me anymore. I was introduced to heroin, and I never thought in my life that I would ever touch heroin. I didn't think that I would even touch prescription pain pills. I didn't even know where to find them when I was in high school. But they were there. They were right in my backyard, and I didn't even know it. So heroin was what brought me to my knees. I've been arrested. I became a convicted felon at age of 24. I had dropped out of college because drugs became my life. I was going to bulldoze anybody and everything to get those drugs. So after I had hit my rock bottom of getting arrested, I had put myself into treatment, and it was the best thing that I could have ever done, because I was able to work on myself. I was able to figure out why I did what I did, why I had to use to feel comfortable in my own skin, because you either use to feel or not to feel, and I didn't want to feel that pain. So coming into recovery, I've gained so much things back. I do work a program of Narcotics Anonymous. I have a sponsor, which a sponsor is somebody who guides me through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. And I'm grateful for those steps because I live by those principles every day. Today, I'm a productive member of society. I am an outreach coordinator with a non-for-profit organization called Recovery Advocates. And I can't even really call it work. It's something I love to do. It's something where I can give back what was so freely given to me, and to let other people know that there is help out there. Because me, when I was in active addiction, I was so scared of that change and going into the unknown that I stayed in that misery and that pain. And I just want to be able to send a message to other people that are going through the same problems, that there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And through recovery, I've gained a lot of things back, not only material things, but I've gained morals back, respect, trust. I have gained material things back, but I have also gained my spirituality back. And today, I can get up and I don't have to figure out how I'm going to get my first fix. I can get up like a normal person, get ready, go to work, and go to the gym and not have to worry about the drugs controlling my entire day. I also was able to gain a townhouse. So I've met a lot of great women, and I ended up becoming friends with these women and moving into a townhouse. And I have a car, and I have my family back, and I have a key to my parents' house When they're not there, they allow me to go into their house because for the longest time, I was stealing everything from them. I was stealing graduation money from my brother. I was stealing valuables from their house. And today I can help them and I can be there for them. And I can be there for my grandma who has cancer. And they don't have to worry about if they're going to get that phone call that their daughter had died, because people aren't just dying on the streets anymore, they're dying in their beds at their houses.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That kind of puts us right in the next step of our presentation with the doctor from the ER, and that segues pretty good right there. So thank you so much for that. It was inspirational. Thank you.
So, I don't know what kind of picture you guys have in your head of what happens when a drug addict comes to the ER. Does anyone want to volunteer? Anyone want to raise their hand? Tell me what does it look like when a drug addict comes into the ER? Okay, nice shot by me. In any case, it's very odd. Most people don't realize not a whole lot of life-saving heroically happens in the ER. Very rarely, maybe once or twice a month, something like that really happens to me. Most of the time looks a lot more like a doctor's office that you've been in and out of a lot. Most of the drug addicts who come into the ER are people who have chronic pain and or pretend to have chronic pain in order to get pain medication. And it's very hard for me as an ER doctor to tell the difference, because they have back pain or they try to convince me to give them back pain pills so they can then turn around and sell them on the street. And they don't look any different than anybody you'd see anywhere else. So it's very, it's surprising how much drug addiction is out there, and it doesn't look like what you think it would look like. In terms of kids who've been brought in, either high or the parents suspect that they're using drugs and they want for me to tell the parents what drugs they're on. That's it's a lot of family drama that comes out in the ER. It's very embarrassing for me to be around. I'm pretty sure it's very embarrassing for the kids when they're brought in either very high or their parents suspect that they're using drugs and want me to test them, and it's a lot of screaming that goes on right there in the ER. A couple notable cases that happened to me once or twice. A young woman, a young teenage girl, was brought into the ER, found completely intoxicated at a party, either on alcohol or pills. It wasn't really clear, and the parents asked us to perform a rape kit on their daughter because they just found her intoxicated, and that's it. And for those unfamiliar with what a rape kit is, it's the most humiliating 4 hours of your life. So these are the kinds of things that I see when kids especially are brought in after they've started abusing drugs. Most commonly, kids are abusing alcohol. I find that brings them to the ER. They also are using, obviously, marijuana. That doesn't bring them, it seems, to the ER as much. They usually get high at home and don't make it to the ER because of it. And if they're using pills, pain pills, it doesn't seem that they come to the ER at all for that. So I'm not familiar with what happens to kids when they start using pain pills, but I see adults a lot, and a lot of them have started in their teenage years. And I see a lot of the consequences of people who are using drugs basically instead of eating, instead of finding themselves clean housing, they have open sores all over their body towards the end. Like Megan said, all they want to do is they want to know where their next high is going to come from, and they can't even think about what's going to happen the hour after that. And it's really haunting to see how a person who has been addicted to drugs for a very long time, how wasted away they can be and how ill they can get from that. And they never start out like that. They always start out indistinguishable from everybody else. So, I don't know.
Thank you very much. So I will say, to add to that, that is not where we want any of us to be. So we don't want to find you in the ER. Doctor doesn't want to see you there, really. And as Megan said, it doesn't ever start out like, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a drug addict. That's not what anybody ever said. In my 35 years of working in this field, no one ever came in my office and said, you know, before I came to see you, my goal was to be a drug addict when I grew up. That's not a goal. It happens, and it happens way too often. And at this point, we're going to ask the prosecutor to tell us what is happening in and around Mercer County and what he's seeing.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for being late. I had really wanted to be here at the health fair, but ended up getting on a conference call, and the judge just wouldn't let me get off the conference call. Narcotics is everywhere here in Mercer County. It's in every neighborhood. It's in every town. Just last year, my Special Investigations Unit in the Mercer County Narcotics Task Force seized 14,365 grams of cocaine. That equals 32 pounds. There were about a pound of crack cocaine, and heroin, which is the prevalent drug here in Mercer County, 13,213 decks of heroin, as well as 4,216 grams, or 9.3 pounds, of loose heroin, not in decks. So if you picture the Splenda packets that were outside there, think about 13,213 of them, and that was just my office. Marijuana is again prevalent here in Mercer County, and last year we seized 36.3 pounds of marijuana. On top of that, we seized 350 pounds of edibles. The THC levels, which is the potent extract in the marijuana, is incredibly potent. This isn't the marijuana of the 60s. This is a lot of it's grown in very controlled conditions. We're also seeing a rise in something called marijuana wax, which is an incredibly hallucinogenic drug. And if you consider that one of the main ingredients in it is butane, like you put in a lighter, that's how dangerous it is. We're also seeing a rise in the synthetic marijuana, and unfortunately, several Mercer County young people were taken to emergency rooms in comas, one of whom didn't come out of it. The street value of everything that we seized was about $3.3 million. And on top of that, we seized in cash about $1.2 million. Associated with that were also 104 guns that we took from the drug dealers. Camille mentioned the Narcan program, and Narcan is really making a difference here in Mercer County. We have deployed a little over 190 times. Of those deployments, 167 people had their overdose reversed and were given a second chance. Unfortunately, there were 13 people that the police couldn't get to save. One of the things that we're hearing now is that people are actually looking for towns where the police carry Narcan, because that's where they're choosing to go to get high. We're seeing it on the New Jersey Transit trains. We're seeing it in every municipality, and these folks are not from Mercer County. They are coming here because they know our police carry Narcan. But it really is a very dangerous game that they're playing, because the police, while they are equipped with Narcan, and they are usually the first to arrive on scene, and Lieutenant Kemp will tell you this, if all the cars are tied up on other jobs, the overdose kind of takes a back seat, and that's unfortunate to say. A lot of the basic life support ambulances here throughout the county don't carry the Narcan antidote, and because of that, that's why a lot of folks are dying. So it is an incredibly dangerous game, even though we have Narcan out there. You know, recently there was an article on NewJersey.com, and it was called Heroin Town. And Heroin Town estimated that there were 128,000 active heroin users in New Jersey. And the scary part about that is those 128,000 people, if they all lived in one town, it would be the 4th largest municipality in New Jersey. Heroin is dirt cheap. In Trenton, you can get it, and kids, this isn't a how-to lesson, because I'm going to tell you about all the bad stuff in just a minute. In Trenton, you can get it for about $2 a deck. And a deck is one of those Splenda packets. It's dirt cheap. By contrast, as the doctor was saying, the pain medications that are being sold on the street, OxyContin, Percocet, are being sold for about $20 a pill. So compare the $20 to the $2. What makes things worse is that we have a very, very rare distinction here in New Jersey. We have the highest heroin purity rate in the country. It's 62% according to the last Drug Enforcement Administration survey. Because the heroin is so pure, a lot of this isn't the way you would see a heroin person in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s with a needle in their arm. Now, because of the purity levels, people are snorting it the way that they used to, like cocaine, and it's producing a very intense high, and that's why we're seeing so many overdoses. The other thing that goes on with all of this, and I'm sure Megan could tell you, but whenever you get addicted to the heroin, you're always chasing after that feeling you had from your first high. And you keep doing more and doing more and doing more. The thing that we are looking to do here in Mercer County, and this was really spearheaded by my friend Barbara Spreckman from the Prevention Coalition of Mercer County. And Megan said this, that you go into the medicine cabinets of your friends and your family and your grandparents to try to see what you can find when you can't get that pain pill anymore, or when you don't have the money for the heroin. Because of that, we created the prescription drop box program, and Barbara, as I said, Barbara spearheaded that. There is a drop box in every police department here in Mercer County, including the College of New Jersey. And because of that, people can bring their unused prescription medications, drop it in what is a reconverted mailbox, and get it out of your house so people can't get a hold of it. Just last week, I was in Lawrence Township, and this year, they collected almost 900 pounds of prescription medications that were left in that drop box. There's also, I have to kind of give a shout out to Capital Health. Narcan is incredibly expensive. The day Governor Christie made the announcement about the expansion of the Narcan program to let the police deploy it, because always the police are there usually 10 to 15 minutes before the ambulance ever gets there. And the day Governor Christie signed the executive order, the price of Narcan doubled because it was then going to become available. We've been really fortunate to partner with Capital Health Systems. Capital Health, for this last round of Narcan, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 Narcan vials that were purchased. They paid for it to be in every police car here in Mercer County, so they have been a great partner of ours. I know that Matt's going to talk about a couple of programs, including the START program, which again Barbara was instrumental in, and also the CARE, Community Addiction Recovery effort, which is active here in West Windsor as well as a few other towns here in Mercer. But what I wanted to leave you with was something that just happened, and the doctor brought this up, that a lot of times you don't know whether the person's coming in with real pain or whether they're making it up so that they can get the medication. What occurs is that the Attorney General just signed a directive that is limiting the prescribing of OxyContin and other pain medications to a 5-day supply, where it used to be a 30-day supply. And we could tell a lot of times, and there was a certain pharmacy that's located here in West Windsor, kind of near the Target, that was always great with calling us when something like that happened. A lot of times, and Matt has seen this over and over again, where the person would come in and where that was a 30-day supply, the person would try to change it to an 180-day supply, which is kind of a tip-off since it's illegal. So the pharmacists were very proactive in calling, and that helped us cut out a lot of prescription fraud. We've also held, with the Drug Enforcement Administration, something called the Do No Harm Conference. And we hosted that at Capital Health, and it kind of gave an overview about the liability issues that doctors can face when they overprescribe medication. The last thing, I mentioned that heroin's really cheap and that a lot of people go into Trenton to buy it. What you're not reading about in the newspapers, partly because none of them are really published here anymore, it is very simply this, that a lot of the people that come from the suburbs that go into the city are the victims of armed robberies because the dealers believe that they're easy targets. There's been a number of women that have been sexually assaulted, dragged out of cars and sexually assaulted because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time trying to buy those narcotics. And it really is one of the tangential and unfortunate effects that there are a lot of people, because of the drug addiction, are becoming victims of sexual violence and assaults and robberies. That's pretty much it for me at this point. We'll take some questions. We'll be here for questions later on. So give it back to Camille.
Thank you very much. What the prosecutor has shown us is that it's just not about taking drugs and what it's doing to you, but it's putting you in harm's way in many other instances. And it's here. It's not just that it's in Trenton or in Camden or Newark. It's right here. And it starts with possibly a prescription for a painkiller. Legit. Most times it is legit that you have a pain, but it progresses, and that's the problem, and it continues. So we're looking for ways to keep you abreast of what's going on, having you hear what's out there. As prosecutor said, he's not telling you how to go get heroin for $2 because it's cheap. He's telling you that that's just the start, and it continues and grows and grows. Megan started with saying she didn't start out stealing her stuff from her parents. It grows into that. So you need to be aware that this is not just a one-time thing. It continues and grows, and it's not a positive growth. So we're trying to give you a bunch of information tonight to keep you aware of what's happening in your own community And the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. With that, Officer Kemp has a great program that he's going to talk about, and what's happening right here in West Windsor is important for all of you to know.
Thank you, everybody. I'd like all the young people to take a look at me. The odds are that every one of you are going to come in contact somehow with drugs. Drugs will affect you in some way, shape, or form during your life. Now, it's up to you to be able to push that away, to minimize that type of contact that you may have, or you go the other direction. So the idea is to empower you with the knowledge base to make the proper decision when you are confronted. When you are confronted. The odds are the majority of children in this state are confronted with drugs in middle school. That's a fact. Both of my daughters were confronted with drugs in middle school. Luckily, we had the talks about these things, and I educated them, and thank God they made the right decision. I'd like to applaud these two young ladies for successfully getting into recovery and making it so far in their recovery. This is exactly what we have to have, because there's only one other option. If we don't have people make it to recovery, the only other option is death. People that are addicted either successfully get into recovery or they will die. That is a fact. Now, in West Windsor, 2 years ago, we had 10 Narcan saves. We were one of the first agencies to carry them full-time with our officers. And I have to tell you, if you've never seen this type of thing, it will take your breath away. That's 10 people that if we didn't have that device, that drug, with us, they were dead. Now, I've investigated several overdose deaths, and it is the most gory thing you could ever see in your life. It has taken a young person and driven them down to basically an animal, where every waking moment in their life is to make their fix, to get their fix. Just like you wake up in the morning and you take that breath, just like you need that, you're going to get that fix. And you will do anything you possibly can to get it. You will rob from your parents. You will spend the money for your college. You will rob from friends. You get that nice gift card from grandma. It's not going to get yourself something cool. It's going to sell on the street so you can get some drugs. Every way you could possibly make money, yes, every way. Once you get down on that road, eventually you're going to get down to that point where anything's on the table to make that happen. I investigated the shoplifting. There was two young people, a boy and a girl, a man and a woman. They were college age. They grew up in the area. She was a very successful honors student, graduate, got a full ride to Virginia Tech University. She met a boy down there, and he turned her on to one hit of heroin. One hit, and she was addicted. That was her predetermined switch, her predisposition, and she was addicted on the first try. What do you think happened to her full ride at Virginia Tech? She was gone. Her addiction became so great that her grades faltered. She sold everything possible to get the next fix for her and this guy. She had to withdraw from school, moved back to the area, and now had to do petty thefts and petty crimes to make the money to feed her addiction. So now we got to see her at her absolute worst. She was beautiful. I remember seeing her senior prom picture because her mom showed it to me, and she was absolutely gorgeous. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could have seen this young woman when I interviewed her in the Detective Bureau, you would have been appalled. She was gross. It broke my heart. She barely had teeth left. She had sores all over her body. It was a tragedy. One hit did it, and she was done. Oh, she tried to get into the road of recovery for a little bit, fell off the wagon, which happens. Went back with this boy. We saw her again committing petty thefts. This time was a little bit different. She had a child now with this boy. So I want you to take a real clear look at this person. This was a person from here. She had everything going for her. And she took that one hit, and her life, as she knew it, was over with. Over. Her mother is raising that child now. Now, here in West Windsor, we've started the CARE program, the Community Addiction Recovery Effort, which I can't take full responsibility for, but I don't care. I don't want it, because it's a great program that is there for the police department, police officers, to offer those who are addicted. Many times, almost every time we come in contact with an addict, they are at their worst, right? We get called, we either do a Narcan deployment, or they need some type of immediate medical care, something's going on, or we've arrested them for some of these crimes that they're trying to commit to make money to feed their addiction. Well, now we've partnered with Recovery Advocates of America, Barbara Spreckman, and we've put this in place where we can take that person, that addict, and we can offer them, police officers offer them help, not from us. We will call those recovery experts and coaches in to speak with that addict right then and there when they need the help now. And we can get those people on that path to recovery so they can become these successful people and these great, assets that society needs. If we can get them when they're at their worst, that's when we have the most opportunity to get them into that path of recovery. So it's kind of strange, because now you're talking about a police officer whose job is to have the war on drugs, but now we're trying to offer the help to get those people onto the road of recovery. Remember what I said. Much of the petty crime that is committed, especially in this area, is fueled by addiction. If we can get those people onto the road of recovery, what's going to happen to our crime rate? It's going to go down. Everyone benefits from this. We have burglaries out here frequently. And frequently, those people are breaking into your houses to get your money to sell for their drugs. I can't stand burglars. I can't stand them. But I can tell you this. If there's an addict there and I can get them help so they don't burglarize again, doesn't that make sense? Absolutely. I want to tell you a little follow-up story to that young lady and that young man. I interviewed them, and I interviewed them with more vigor. I had them dead to rights on the crime that they committed. I knew exactly it did. I had the evidence. I knew that I could send them away. But I interviewed her and him about how they started it, so I could get this story. How did it happen to you? How did you become addicted? I took that video, because it's recorded. I sat both of my girls down, and I said, I want you to watch this. Because when you are confronted with drugs, I want you to remember this young lady and how horrific her life is. Now, I did learn that she is on the path of recovery. He is not. We don't know where he is. But remember this story, because the odds are, ladies and gentlemen, You are going to be confronted, whether it be here in the West Windsor-Plainsboro School District or whether it be in college, you're going to be confronted with drugs. And you are going to have to make that decision at some point in your lives. Oh, and guess what? It could be when you're given a prescription. This is a trusted source of medical information. Now you've been given a prescription. You've got to understand that those are just as dangerous, and you have to treat them with the utmost respect.
Thank you very, very much. We've been talking a lot about what happens, and we've used the word recovery a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit about recovery and how to get into recovery and what you can do for your friends before I'm going to let Morgan finish us up. But it's very important to understand that just as horrific as the addiction is, it's just as exciting and wonderful to be in recovery and to work that program. It is very difficult. It is not an easy thing. It doesn't happen like that. And it takes maybe 3, maybe 5, maybe 10, however many chances it takes to go in recovery and maybe relapse and then come back. Out in the social hall, there were agencies out there that were here for people that need addiction treatment and recovery. Summit Behavioral Health, Jewish Family and Children's Services, Corner House, Recovery Advocates, Gen Psych. Did I miss anybody? High Focus, I'm so sorry, was here. They are here for you. The other thing that you as a person can do, if you're not taking drugs and you know somebody who is, it is critical that you get them to understand what they're doing and to get help for them. There is the Overdose Protection Act. If you see somebody who is overdosing, please, 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 I can't beg you enough, do not leave them and think, oh, they'll sleep it off. That doesn't always happen. People die. A colleague of ours, his son, died because his friends were too afraid to call 911. He would be alive sitting here today if the friends were not afraid to call 911. There's a Good Samaritan Act. You can call 911. Please do so. Get that person help. Not just, if you think somebody's drank too much and they're passed out and you're just going to roll them on their side and they'll be okay. Nuh-uh. No. Get them help. It is critical that you get help and call 911. That is what you can do. You can be a support to somebody and support yourself. Recovery is obtainable. It is not easy. They will attest to that. Many people here will. I've been doing this in my private practice for 25 years now and working in the field. I'm not going to tell you how long, but a long time. And as I said before, no one ever said to me, hey, when I grew up, I wanted to be a drug addict, and that's what I want you to help me do. No. I asked them, how do you get started in this? They didn't know. It just sort of came on, it happened, and then one day it was not enough, and then it was too much. It's really important for you to understand it could happen the first time you take a hit on something, or it could progress and be a chronic illness. What is very true is there's only 2 ways out. There's only 2 ways out. This is a disease. It's not a moral failing. It's not a shame-based issue. It is a disease just like diabetes, just like heart disease, anything. Once you have it, you need to take care of it. If you're a diabetic and the doctor says take insulin and you take it sometimes, you're okay sometimes. If you don't take it, you're not okay. Same thing with recovery. You need to be on it all the time. It's a lifelong path. And a positive one when you embrace recovery. When you embrace it, it's positive. It's not easy. No one will ever tell you it's easy. But it is a lifelong path that you can stay on and be healthy. There are treatment programs out there. There are support programs out there. The 12-step programs are there. There's anywhere you look, 365 days a year, there is a support group out there. You can find one. Everywhere across the United States. When you go on vacation, And even out of the United States, I know people who have gone on vacation to the Caribbean, and they found a meeting to go to. It was that important, and their recovery is that important. So you could be a support to your friends. You could be a support to yourself. With that, think of any questions you have. I'm going to let Morgan end our session tonight about her recovery and where she came to. Please, if you have any questions, pass them in, and we will answer those questions.
Hi everyone, my name's Morgan Thompson. I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that I haven't used drugs or alcohol since I was 18 years old. And as was mentioned in the beginning, that was a little over 7.5 years ago for me. I want to thank everyone who spoke on this panel. A lot of really great information was provided tonight. I hope everybody, will take note of some of the great resources that are available here in this community. I'm not from here. I was born in Princeton, but I was raised in Middlesex County, out in Monroe, and now I live out in Hunterdon County. But I do panels like this all over the state. And, I always like to really commend the folks who put it together, the communities that are willing to have it, the facilities that are willing to host it, because for a long time, nobody wanted to talk about this problem. And the name of the program is It's in Our Backyard. And that's a play on the phrase, the NIMBY phrase, not in my backyard. Communities, affluent communities, middle-class communities, non-urban communities did not want to admit that drugs were an issue in their backyards. And we know now that they are, and we can't turn our heads anymore because of stories like mine and Megan's. So, as you heard in the beginning, I've had a lot of really great things happen for me since I made the decision to get clean and sober. I graduated college. I am in a master's program. I have a full-time job helping young people find recovery, which is a dream. I've gotten married. I've traveled. I've gone to support groups on 3 different continents in about 8 different countries, so that's really true. I've traveled the world. I've had a beyond normal, college and young adult experience. It's been extraordinary because I've not used drugs and alcohol. Because I want to tell you, when I was using drugs and alcohol, much like what was spoken about tonight, it was not pretty. It was awful. I failed out of college twice in a period of about 6 months, 2 different colleges. I could not keep a job, even as a diner waitress. I just kept getting fired, bouncing from one place to another, trying to get enough money together to buy another bag of dope. And it was a horrible way to live, and I couldn't keep it up most of the time, and I ended up doing humiliating, disgusting things that I will spare you the details of, but it was not anything I ever imagined myself to be in a position to do. I was always, the smartest girl in my class. I was always a leader. I was always, I had friends. I wouldn't say I was popular, but I never struggled socially. I dealt with some of the things that Megan talked about, the insecurity, not feeling good enough, but I think that's a normal part of growing up. And people face those things and they don't get high over it. But the fact of the matter is, I turned to drugs and alcohol very early on in my life. I was about 12 years old when I started drinking on a regular basis. I started using marijuana, and I can tell you, all the people that, these stories that have been told tonight, it started there. It started with alcohol and marijuana, 2 substances that our culture deems to be very acceptable these days. I mean, not so much back then. Marijuana was a little bit more stigmatized, but today we hear about it being used as a medication. But I definitely want everyone to know something that I didn't know when I was 13 years old, that when you're, a teenager, your brain is different than an adult's. And these substances, when they're introduced into your body, it changes your brain in a way that makes you much, much, much more likely to become addicted to drugs and alcohol later on in your life. And that's what happened to me, to where by the time I was 18 years old, as I mentioned, I was addicted to heroin, I was addicted to crack cocaine, I was on the brink of homelessness and being completely estranged from my family. Everything I did, I had to use more to forget what I had done to be able to use. To be able to live with myself. And it was just miserable. It was a miserable existence. My parents, intervened, and I really commend them for having the courage to do what they did, intervening and sending me to treatment. And I love to say, I don't really take a whole lot of credit for the fact that I'm in recovery today and that I've been in recovery for a long time. I had every possible service provided to me in the perfect order, to be able to maintain my recovery. I got detox services to get the drugs out of my system. I went to rehab for a good period of time. I had an outpatient program afterwards, and then I was able to move to Rutgers to a recovery community where I had lots of young adult peers who were just like me, students, trying to do the right thing, trying to stay in recovery as well, and we all supported each other, and that is essential. And, right up until this day, through the support groups in the community, through the connections that I've made, through having access to mental health services, because I found out after the drugs were out of my system that I had some issues I needed to deal with, mental health-wise, that I had masked with drugs and alcohol, and I got to have those issues addressed. I had my physical health taken care of. I always had a place to live. These are things that make it so much more likely that somebody is going to stay in recovery, and it's something that most people who try to enter recovery, no matter what background they come from, do not have access to because they've burned every single bridge in their active addiction. And so, the reason I speak out about my recovery is because I want those resources that I had available to me, available to anybody who needs them at any point. I work in the first recovery high school in the state of New Jersey. There was no recovery high school when I was struggling. And today I go to work every day and I work with 16, 17, 18-year-old students who are just like some of you sitting, in the audience, but drugs and alcohol have gotten to a point where they lose control when they start, and so they had to stop. And, I get to, learn from them and share things with them and support them every day, and I couldn't imagine anything better for myself. Again, I just really want to commend this community for opening up and having this dialogue, and know that the resources are out there, they're available, and nobody's not affected by this today. Everybody knows somebody, and it's all of our responsibility to fight this disease and fight this epidemic. So thank you. That's all I have.
So we do have a few questions that were asked. Yes. Yes. Go ahead. So let me answer your first question, and then you can answer. Yes, I think it would help. And I think that is where we are headed. And I think that it has only been recently that addiction has been believed to be a disease and believed to be a less shameful act than it was in the past. There was always, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get over it, That's not the way it is anymore. And yes, the medical field is looking at it, and doctors are getting more educated and being more educators for families and people.
At this point in time, while there is a pretty big sea change in how we look at addiction, right now, by the time someone who is addicted gets gets to the medical system, they're very deep into their addiction, and they're starting to have medical problems like the frequent infections or malnutrition or things like that from their addiction, and it's much, much harder to intervene at that point in time. So right now, that's why it's less of a medical problem and more involving the police and the district attorneys.
So, I'm not a doctor, but what I can say is I've been in the field here, and so I'm learning this stuff, and I did take notice of a huge push by the former administration to get a lot of these theories taught in medical school. So you're seeing more blocks of instruction on addiction and awareness for new doctors to be very mindful about the prescriptions that they are writing. And just like the prosecutor mentioned and the doctor, about limiting those prescriptions from those high, the high volume and knocking it down. Getting into schools, I mean, think about the way that we teach about safety. You talk about bullying in middle school and lower school. You talk about seat belts when? You talk about, think of all the little things that we teach at the young ages. If we were able to do that, talk about addiction at those young ages, we'd really get that message across. That's my opinion. I had to throw my opinion.
There is something else that's going on, and the school nurses and the public health nurses in the various school districts. We started, along with Hamilton Mayor Kelly Yeading, something that we're calling the Hamilton Initiative. And the Hamilton Initiative is for 1 week where public health professionals go into the schools along with people from my office, people from different lives. Hopefully, in a few, for the next one that we do, my friend John McCarelli from Recovery Advocates will come in. But we do talk about it from the public health crisis and perspective. I'll be convening a meeting of all the mayors and school superintendents coming up in the next few weeks, and it's our hope to touch every high school student in Mercer County about this issue. In Hamilton, December 5th, we did our first block. It was all 9th and 10th grade students, and during the week of February 25th, I believe it is, we'll reach all the juniors and seniors. So there is a block on that and how it affects the brain, and some pretty in-depth medical information taught by nursing professionals.
I just have a very quick question. I'd like to give out a semantics that language is done. Why do we call it getting high? I'd like to see a movement to say either getting low or getting dead. Instead of getting high. Getting high sounds too euphoric, too nice. For something that is so deadly, so devastating. But I'd like to see something like, let's stop saying people are getting high. People are either getting really low or getting dead. I'd like to
We are looking at the semantics of the words. When our young people at the end of the table say they are in long-term recovery, it's a very different wording than I'm an addict. I'm a person in long-term recovery says I'm working on myself and I'm healthy, as opposed to I'm a drug addict. And I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying we're looking at the language and the verbiage. Let me ask the questions, one of the questions from the students. This is for you, doctor. If someone drinks excessively and smokes weed, will the marijuana keep the person from vomiting, resulting in alcohol poisoning?
Anything excessively is dangerous, and if you're going to mix other drugs excessively with other drugs, that's really a recipe for disaster. A lot of drugs like theoretically have effects that should cancel each other out. But what I like to think of that as is, imagine two teams playing tug of war, and your body's the rope. And it's not a good position for your body to be in. I'm not too up on the latest research. My understanding is it's a small portion of the population, not the majority, but it's impossible to look at somebody, for a doctor to look at you and say, oh, you'll never get addicted to this, and likewise for the doctor to say, oh, I'm not going to give you pain medicine because you could be addicted. It's impossible to say until you become addicted. Even if you have a family history of addiction, you might not be addicted. Or there are lots of addicts out there who have no family history of addiction. So there's no good way to tell until it happens to you, and then by then it's much harder to come out.
Anybody can become addicted to drugs. It doesn't matter, where you come from, what you've been through, etc. There are certain things that make you more likely to become addicted to drugs if you have a family history of addiction, things like that. I don't know the specific number of people who struggle with addiction in America, but I can tell you that 127 people, and that number might have even risen since the last time they checked, but on average, 127 people die every day just from prescription drug overdoses. So that gives you an idea. I mean, that's almost as many, I know it's now either the first or second leading cause of death in the country, and so that's just people who are dying from, addiction to one drug, not all the drugs. So it's a lot.
The prosecutor is actually a lot of things. The first is that I'm the chief law enforcement officer for the county, which simply means that I set county policy. It also means that I'm one of the people that has kind of the bully pulpit where I can talk to people and bring issues to light. And one of the things that we do have to bring to light is the heroin and opioid epidemic. It really is killing people. 127 people is the accurate number per day. The situation has gotten so bad that the National Health Organization has declared it a public health crisis. So they are starting to talk about it from a medical perspective on the national level. The other thing that the prosecutor does is we prosecute bad guys. We bring them to court and try to convict them. And my office has about a 97% conviction rate. We also do a lot of things. I think one of the things that the county prosecutor is really supposed to be is an engine to ignite change. And by starting to talk about a lot of these issues, and Matt was right. When I first joined the prosecutor's office, I never thought I'd be up here talking about helping people who were addicted and who had overdosed. Unfortunately, when I started, I just saw them as criminals. Now they're not. They are people who are struggling. They're people who are crying out. And if we will never arrest or prosecute ourselves out of addiction. It's got to be social change, and it's got to start in the schools. And fortunately, with the governor, the attorney general, the county prosecutor, doctors, the police all talking about it, it's okay to talk about now. It's okay to admit that you have an addiction, and it's okay to reach out for help. And I think in the grand scheme of things, if the prosecutor can do anything, it's to try to determine the people, like Matt had said, who belong in the system, and to try to screen out the people who don't belong in because they're addicted. Because if we don't screen them out and get them help, that cycle of crime is just going to keep going on and on and on.
Megan, this is for you. You referred to the 12 steps. Can you tell us what are the 12 steps? And thank you for sharing about your experience.
So the 12 steps are basically principles that you live by. I apply them daily. So there, you have 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, 12 steps of AA. There's a whole bunch of anonymous programs out there. I do Narcotics Anonymous, and the first step is admitting that you're powerless. And I had to admit that I was powerless, and some of the steps, I'm trying to think of a way to explain this in a simple term. It shows me the responsibility, the accountability that I take for the hurt and the pain that I've caused other people, and it has also, they say the answers are in the steps. So me working the steps shows me and kind of answers the questions of why I do what I do, why I started to use, why I picked up drugs, why I couldn't stop. And it helps me work on that pain and that suffering, that little girl that I had talked about that was deep inside of me. It helps me work on her, and it helps me become a better person and a productive member of society. And it helps me better myself so that I can be there to help other people.
The next two questions are for both of you. How long were you doing drugs for, and did you know the consequences of drugs before you took them, or were you never taught?
I did drugs for about 6 years. You know, it wasn't always cocaine and heroin. You know, like I said, alcohol, marijuana. I consider those drugs because they are. So I think I got some mixed messages about drugs and alcohol, particularly marijuana, growing up. My family kind of had a laid-back view towards it, like a lot of people do today. You know, and they weren't necessarily educated on some of the things I mentioned before about how dangerous alcohol and marijuana are for young people, for people with developing brains. But I can tell you, you know, when the DARE officer came in to my 6th grade class, I didn't listen because I didn't think it applied to me. I didn't think people who came from the community I came from did drugs. I didn't think drugs were going to be in front of me, at least not hard drugs, not even prescription drugs. I never thought I would need to know how to say no because I didn't think it was going to be placed in front of me.
So I used for about 5.5 years. Like she said, I had the DARE line come in and talk to me. I had presentations on it where convicted felons had come in and they shared their experience, strength, and hope with us. And they told us how they got to the point that they were at. And I didn't really listen. I never thought it was going to be me. I was very judgmental, and I was one of those kids that sat in the back and kind of smirked and laughed at them when they came in. And lo and behold, I am the one standing in front of kids and speaking about my experience, strength, and hope. But we did have presentations, and the schools did make us aware of, you know, what drugs do to you and where they bring you. And unfortunately, I just didn't want to listen because I didn't want to believe that it would be me one day.
The last question for you is, how long did recovery take?
That's an interesting question. So it's taken me 7.5 years, and it's probably going to take me the rest of my life. You know, I see recovery as an ongoing process. I have to work every day not to, you know, fall backwards. Not to say that I wake up in the morning thinking that I want to get high or get low, like you said. You know, I don't. I don't think about drugs very often. I've been in places where they were drugs. I worked in a hospital. I would search through the patient's bags, and they were coming for detox, and I would find drugs. And I don't want to use them, you know. a lot of that is because my life has gotten so good, that I don't want to gamble it today. But at the same time, I know that I have to keep working on myself. I also work the 12 steps, and some of the most important things I got from the 12 steps were that I need to understand myself. I need to know when I feel something that I don't have to numb it. I don't have to do anything to avoid. I can feel my feelings and use the resources available to me, whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's, going to exercise, something positive that's going to help me to cope, and also that every time I help somebody else, I help myself. So that's another big part of what the 12 steps mean to me, and that's a lot of what my recovery is. It's one day at a time, but it's also, understanding that I'm never cured. This isn't a disease you could be cured from. It's a disease that you can manage and keep in remission for your entire life if you do what you need to do for yourself.
So I've been in recovery for about a little over 19 months, and it's something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. I always say that I have gained some knowledge of the program, but I don't know everything. I remain teachable, and all of the good things that recovery has brought for me, just with my family, with friends, those are things that I don't want to lose. And when I was using, I wasn't really living. I was an empty shell. I was physically here, but I wasn't mentally here. And I never want to be that way again. I don't want to end up in a jail cell. I don't want to end up dead. So it's something that I'm going to have to work on for the rest of my life.
Officer Kemp, the question is, how old on average were the 10 people who you used Narcan on?
From teenage years up to college age, so between 17 and 21, that kind of thing. And it was very sad because these were people that, athletes in college. One particular individual was an athlete in a very decent college up north, had an injury to the knee, had a prescription given to him for an opiate pain reliever, and became addicted on that. And that was the path that he went down, and ultimately turned to heroin when the prescriptions ran out. Because that's what happens. The prescriptions run out. You can try to buy them on the street, but now you don't have the money to get them. So that's generally the age range that we see.
This question is, what do I do for a family member that may be on drugs? I don't know what he's on, but he's a minor and getting out of control.
Well, there's a lot of different recovery folks or things that can happen. We actually have start packets that Barbara Spreckman gave to the police department, and we have these in every police vehicle. We have them at our headquarters, and it is in our policy that if somebody comes into a police station and they ask for some guidance or help, they will leave with this. If we can activate our care program for that person and actually get a recovery coach in to speak with him or her, we'll do it. We'll make the phone call on their behalf, and then they will come out. Not a police officer in your business. It'll be a recovery coach that will help you along the way. And this information that's in this packet, you can take, go through, see what kind of fits your issue, and work through that. So there's different avenues that are available to you.
And I will tell you, if you're concerned about a friend or sibling, someone, go to a trusted adult that you trust and tell them. You're not ratting that person out. You're probably saving their life in the long time.
That's right.
In the long run. You are not the bad guy here. You are the person that could be saving their life and a future that a path they don't have to go on. So that is go to a trusted adult that you know. These cards are the 911 cards that I was talking about for you. If you see someone that needs help, please take one of these before you leave. I want to say thank you to our panel for coming here tonight. They took their time out on their own time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Just in close, I want to let you know that tonight's program was brought to you by Kesher, which is Beth Chaim's caring committee. These women worked tirelessly for several months to bring you all of these wonderful speakers and the agency reps, who many of whom are still available after the program if you'd like to go back to the social hall. But I just want to name them: Hagit Sten, Jean Withers, Elaine Friedman, with help from Camille Bloomberg and Alana Berlinger as well. Thank you so much for helping us organize this program tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Know that we're all here to help you. Tonight's program was not to scare you. Kesher means connection. We want to connect you with the information and the resources that can help you and people that you care about. So thank you again for coming, and we'll stick around for any further questions and discussion.